This is Canada Reads American Style, featuring two friends who love Canada Reads and Canadian literature. Welcome our host Rebecca from Michigan and Tara from Ontario.
Welcome, everyone. It's a happy day, but it's kind of a sad day. It's the Canada Reads finale, CBC's Canada Reads finale. It is over, but it was fantastic. And we are going to talk a little bit about it today. And we have a couple of other really fun questions that we'll talk about that will lead us into next year's competition as well. So we're going to go ahead and start, and we're basically opening it up, and any one of us can talk about any part of the whole competition or today specifically. And we'll actually start with Tara.
Okay, I have had a platter of poutine and I am ready. Yeah, maybe not a platter, not that big, but still a big dish of poutine and I am ready. So I am very happy with the way today's vote went, because as soon as Christian spoke for the first time, I'm like, yeah, I think his book, it is time for his book to win. This is the day, the week for his book. So I was really happy with how it went. I was a little surprised at the votes. I didn't expect it to be a 4-1 result. But I think that everyone kind of felt the same way, that it was time for Five Little Indians to be spotlighted in this manner. So yeah, and one little shout out, I loved Allie's and Christian's jackets today. They looked amazing. They look so good.
I have to go back and look at Allie's. I loved Christian's, but now I don't remember. What did Allie's look like? Do you
Allie's was
remember?
just this beautiful pink jacket. Yes, he had a great shirt on and then this beautiful pink jacket. It was really nice. Looked really stunning on him.
Yeah, I noticed his Allie's shirt and I thought that is a very cool shirt. So
yeah,
yeah, they both look great. Yeah, I've been loving this competition. It's my favorite Canada Reads since I've been watching, so in the last few years anyway. And I do a prediction every year after I've read all of the shortlist, and it was following my predictions. So the first book to go out was the one I predicted, second book, third book. And I did say in my prediction video that I would be happy if Five Little Indians or Scarborough won. And that was true. I would have been happy either way today. And I think I ended up leaning towards Scarborough in that prediction, and it was because of, I think partly because it was the one that I read like right now, and I've read Five Little Indians a long time ago. So it could have been that, so it was really fresh in my mind. But today I thought it went the way it was supposed to go. It was so well done. And I think, Tara, you mentioned that you were surprised that it went 4-1. And I can see what you're saying, but at the same time, I think the debates went so well and Christian really went to bat for his book.
Yeah.
That, like Tarek really thought about it. Mark really thought about it. And I think that this is the first time I feel like people were trying to pick the book, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, I feel in the competitions, like, it's like, no, I'm going to win and I'll do whatever, kind of like a Survivor mode, or Amazing Race mode, like I'm going to do whatever it takes. Where this one, I actually think that the conversations were about the book and that people really wanted to pick the best book. And, and even, Mark made a mention something about that sometimes he watches and they talk about everything but the book. And they really went into details about the characters and the writing and the structure. And I really, as a reader, I really appreciated that part of it. It was my favorite thing. And Michelle Good, my Auntie Coco, shout out to her. I love that she won. So Christian did a great job.
Yeah, Jolene, excuse me, I just kind of have to echo everything you just said because, when I started watching Canada Reads, I think the first year I watched it, it was the year that Humble the Poet won with 15 Dogs. And it was really just this discussion and this book discussion, which is how I sort of discovered it. And I fell in love with it. I was like, this is the most amazing thing. And then, we've had a couple of years where things got a little contentious or whatever. And I was like, oh, let's go back to the way it was, the first time I heard it. I want to hear it as a book discussion because as readers, that's what we love. And they could have talked for 4 weeks for me and just kept pulling out those gems and the discussion points and everything. Because even though I think Allie thought Suzanne sort of went off topic a little bit because he was sort of saying like, oh, keep in mind, we're debating the books. I still loved hearing all of those comments. I thought that was important to still hear. And I also want to give a huge shout out to Allie because I think he probably was really happy too that he didn't have to like stress over, any of the days, all 4 days. And I just thought he handles himself so beautifully. It's, he's got a little light humor when it's important. He keeps things moving. I just think in every way, shape, and form, CBC's team, their entire team pulled this off and made it the best I've seen. And I just, gosh, it makes you want next year to roll around really quickly. But I just hope that they sort of hold this year up as the example that everyone should try to follow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's see, any other comments? Well, I will say too, the one thing I wanted to say, I was a little surprised because yesterday when Tara and I talked about how we thought the vote would go, I actually thought that I think Suzanne and both Tarek would vote off Five Little Indians. So it was really a surprise to me personally that the vote was 4-1. So I was a little bit of a surprise.
Rebecca, what did I predict?
I know. I'm going to go back because I did write it down as our listeners
you wrote
know.
Notes, and I'm so glad you did because I'm like, I can't remember what I predicted.
Okay, you said that Mark and Suzanne would vote off Scarborough.
Okay.
And Tarek, because you said you could go either way with him.
Mm-hmm.
And you said he would vote off Five Little Indians.
Oh,
so
okay.
Between the two of us, you won. So you're the winner.
Yes.
So there you go.
No, but that's not why.
Oh no, I mean, I'm very competitive. I mean, you win. So there you go. Yay.
Okay. But that explains why I was kind of surprised at a 4-1 vote today as well. Cause I was like, oh, I thought there would have been another vote in there for Scarborough. So yeah.
But they just all did a super job.
They did.
Yeah.
Well, are we ready to move on to our next question? Which I think is kind of a fun question.
Okay.
Yay. Okay.
Yep.
So this is of course for 2023, although when you find out from Allie that a lot of times and from other defenders that they've been grooming people for years to be on the show, who knows who will show up in 23, but who would you like to see as a defender in say 2023?
This is a really interesting question because I know they try to make it as diverse as possible. They try to, pick different people from various kind of, like we had, an athlete, we've had singers, we've had writers, we've had scientists, like we've had everything. So I was trying to think like in terms of that, like who would be in my top. And we've mentioned this before. I don't know if we've mentioned it publicly before, but J.L. Richardson, who is the founder of the Festival of Literary Diversity, the Fold Festival. I think she would do a great job. She does a little bit afterwards, kind of a live 20-minute thing on Instagram afterwards. And she has some great thoughts and she has, her strategies herself. And I'd like to actually see her put those into action. So I think that'd be great. I was also thinking of Romeo Dallaire, who for me is like one of Canada's greatest heroes. Romeo Dallaire led the peacekeeping mission in Rwanda during the Rwandan genocide against the Tutsis in 1994. And I think he actually may have had one of his books on Canada Reads. I could be wrong about that, though. That would have been a while ago. But yeah, I'd love to see someone like him, especially if it's done the way it was done this year. I think he would bring a lot to the table. Yeah. And then the third person I was thinking, and she may have already done it actually, but I don't know that because I haven't watched the earlier ones, but Megan Follows, So Megan Follows for me is Anne of Green Gables.
Yeah.
And just, such a great Canadian, actress. And I think she'd be a lot of fun to see her defend a book. So
I think she
those
did do one of the earlier ones too,
she may
Jolene.
have, yeah.
Yes.
So
I can't remember the book,
maybe
but
she needs to come back. I don't know.
yeah. They have had people come back once or twice, right?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, repeat once. So
Oh, they have?
yeah. Yeah, I
Oh,
think so.
okay. Now, Jolene, is the guy that you mentioned in the
Yeah.
middle, is that the one that you interviewed on your on YouTube?
No, that
Okay.
was a Rwandan survivor.
Oh, okay.
Omar,
All right.
yeah. So
Yeah.
Omar wrote a book about surviving Nyamata, which is one of the now it's a memorial site. At the time, it was a church, and so that was Omar. I'm trying to think of his last name now, Nienze or something like that. That's not what it is. I'll have to look it up. But yeah, so no, Romeo Dallaire, he's done a lot of work. He's talked partly because he has PTSD, obviously, after everything that he tried to do, because he stayed even against orders when he was told to leave, and he just couldn't do it. Morally, he couldn't do it, but he suffers every day because of it. And he's tried to take his own life. He talks about what that's like, and how he lives in Rwanda every day. And he has written about the PTSD, but he's also done a lot of work against child soldiers and things like that. So he's an incredible person. I know he suffers greatly, but he's still doing so many great things while he's suffering. And yeah, he's just an incredible speaker. If you ever get a chance to hear him speak, definitely worth going to hear him. Yeah.
Wow, that's an incredible list. Yeah, thank you. And
You're
no, I
welcome.
mean that's actually a really incredible list because
Yeah.
now mine seems a little kind of silly, but that's okay because
Silly's
because
okay.
because when I looked up like Canadian celebrities, like I didn't know how to
Oh.
find people necessarily,
Mhm.
and of course it's the huge names like Ryan. Is it no?
Yeah, Ryan
Ryan
Reynolds,
Reynolds,
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan
Yeah.
Gosling,
Yeah,
yeah, that's the other one.
oh yeah, both of them. Yeah, so I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to pick them because that's just too obvious, and I don't know that they would ever do it. But
Yeah.
the person I picked is one of my favorite actors from one of my favorite TV shows of like forever, and it's a Canadian show. You guys probably I don't know if you watched it. It was Being Erica. Did you guys watch that?
Oh,
No,
no,
I
I
never did.
didn't. But you've mentioned it and I
My
want to.
gosh, I love it so. Okay, so Michael Riley is an actor and a producer, and he played Dr. Tom on the show. And the basic premise of the show, and Aaron, oh gosh, I can't pronounce her last name. It's like Carplunk or something. She's the one that played Erica. And basically, it was just a story where she meets this guy who's like a therapist, and I put that in quotes, and he's able to have her go back in time to sort of correct the mistakes she made when she was younger. And the story's just amazing. It's her family, it's her relationships and everything. But it was the Dr. Tom character that I loved so much. He just had all this wisdom, but he had his own angst and pain and everything. And I just thought the actor was incredible. And I think actors, I was thinking back of Tamo Pennicott and how he just did an impassioned defense of American War. And so I thought maybe as an actor, he would have that same ability to be on there. And he's somebody who isn't like Ryan Reynolds, right? Where everybody, knows him. But I thought maybe, he would be like, I would watch it, besides the fact I have a huge crush on him, but I'm just saying, I'm not going to lie, but I thought, anyway, that's my choice. And I only had one because I was like, I don't know how to find like all these, because they do find amazing people to be the
Yeah.
defenders. And I don't know how they find them, but it's kind of like Dancing with the Stars, right? Sometimes they'll put on these people on the show and you just say, who are these people? So I think it's kind of the same thing. They do find some really hidden gems among all of you Canadians. So that's just my one choice, Michael Riley.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not silly at all. That was good.
No.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So mine, when I was thinking about it, I went through a couple of different ones that first popped up and then no one popped, but I wanted someone that if it was announced, I would be like, ooh, like really excited to see them. And also someone that I thought could do a really good job. Now, oddly enough, I had this is so funny. And my husband and I both shared this because when I asked him, when I mentioned it to him, he mentioned the same name, and I was like, me too. No, but it's so silly. But it shows how formative it was in my childhood. Mr. Dress Up was one of the first ones
Oh,
that popped into my head. And
oh,
I'm
I
like,
love
okay,
Ernie
right.
Coombs.
I
He
know.
passed away so long ago, though.
Oh, so long. Yes,
I
but
love
that popped in
him.
my head. And then I also, this musician has also passed away, but I think he would have been great too. There's a Canadian band from British Columbia, Spirit of the West.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, their lead singer,
Mhm.
John Mann,
Mhm.
who was a ball of energy and very, had a great way with words because he was a poet. It was in his music and his lyrics. And I would have loved to have known what book he would have chosen. And I would have loved to have seen him fight for that book. But then, but again, he sadly passed away a few years ago. So that's not going to happen.
Those would be
And
great
then,
picks.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. But then I kind of, Rebecca, went the
Mhm.
way of you and went, wait a minute. I loved this TV show and have a huge crush on this one particular actor. And it's Tom Jackson from North
Oh,
of 60,
yeah.
who is, yes, right. And he's also a musician and he's tall. He's a good looking man. He's got a great voice.
Mhm.
And again, I would love to know what book he's going to pick. And I would just sit back and watch him talk. Like,
See, I wanna watch that show, but I can't get it anywhere. I've looked that up and
no.
I've never seen it, so I don't know who you're talking about, but I tried to see if I could watch it on something, and I
Yeah,
can't find it anywhere, so darn
no,
it all.
I
Oh.
haven't watched it in ages because I can't find it either.
Tom
But
Jackson would be fantastic. And it's funny that you mentioned Mr. Dress Up, Tara,
yeah,
because just before you started talking, I wrote down 2 more names. I'm trying to
no,
pick my favorite people, and
yeah.
one of them is Fred Penner, and
Oh,
he's still alive, so
yes.
he's got that going for him.
That would
Uh,
be, and Raffi.
yeah, Rocky.
Raffi would be really good too.
Yeah, right. So that would be
Yeah,
fun. And I mean, I've been to music festivals, well, pre-COVID, the year or two before COVID, and
yeah,
Fred Penner has been there, and the kids like him, but the adults
yeah,
like him even more. Like he's just fantastic. He's so much fun,
yeah.
and we, do all the crazy songs and do all the actions. So he'd be good. And then I also wrote down David Suzuki.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that'd be
I'm
really
actually surprised that he hasn't been on it already
good. Mm-hmm.
when you say
Hmm.
his name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay, so I know David Suzuki, but pretty much all the other names that you mentioned, I didn't know, which would be in fine order of the way it is every year when they announce the people. I don't know who they are. Although I did know Tarek, like I said, because I actually had ordered his chocolate and had it delivered here in Michigan. So that happened before the show. So, well, those are all really great choices. But you know what? It just dawned on me, ladies,
what?
we only picked one woman out of that whole pile.
Oh
I have
my.
2.
Oh, you do?
I
Who
have
did you
JL.
have?
I have JL Richardson
Oh,
and
that's right,
Megan
jail.
Follows. Yeah.
That's right. You had
Yes.
2, but we
Oh,
did not.
actually, I could throw in because I just went with who I end up being my final. But I also had Sarah Pauly was
Oh,
in the
that's right.
running
Oh,
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think she would be great.
she would be. That
Yeah,
would be
yeah,
fun. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I think those are really good choices. So if anybody from CBC is listening, we would like to see any or all of these people eventually on Canada Reads, except for, of course, the first 2 that Tara mentioned
I'm
that
so
passed.
sorry.
I know when you started to say that, I was like, wait a minute, what? They're
I
gone?
know.
Okay, no,
I
that was
know.
funny.
And I could not get John Mann out of my head because I
Mm-hmm.
love him so much. And I was just like, oh my God, he would have been so good. He would have been so good.
Okay, now our last question for
Okay.
today is, since we've already talked about Defenders, we want to know what books would you like to see on the short list in the future? So this has to be one you're willing to put out there to be on the short list and actually on the show. I'm going to go first. Most of the Canadian literature that I've read in the past 5 or 6 years or whatever it has been, it's been all pretty much Indigenous authors. So I went back and I looked and I thought, well, the last 2 books have been that one were by Indigenous authors. So I thought, I'm going to go a little bit different and not pick one that's on my master list. But it is one that we read recently, and we actually did a podcast about it. but I want to see A Town Called Solace by Mary Lawson. And I
Yeah.
want to see it for a number of reasons, just to sort of switch it up a little bit. It's a northern rural community, which I love because I'm a city person. I wasn't born in a big city, but I've lived in major cities and I love cities. But when I read books about rural communities, it just is exciting to me. I just think there's something really beautifully descriptive usually about it. So that's one of the things I loved about it. I also love, because I was really thinking about the arguments they could make in the debate, right? It really
Mhm.
covers a small child all the way to an older woman at end of life. And there's this wide range of characters. Also, it is very realistic. Everything that happens in this book, there's no fable or fantasy to it. It is realistic. All of those things could have happened to people. And I love too that it's quiet fiction because
Mhm.
I always say I love quiet fiction and it never gets its due because people kind of blow through it. They don't really necessarily, I think they look for the, like exploding, bombs or whatever. And they sort of forget sometimes. I always say it's a slice of life. I love those kind of stories. So I like that it's quiet fiction and it's set in the past. And what I like about that is it really sort of takes off the table having to worry about today's sort of um, today's issues in a way. And I don't mean that in any way as slight against the books that have been winning or the books that have been really prominently displayed, which I've loved. Obviously, I've loved all of them. But I just like the idea because one of the things that Tara and I had said about it was what happens in the book could only have happened in the past because if you'd had access to a cell phone and could look things up, the outcome would have been a different story. So for all of those reasons, and plus Mary Lawson is an amazing speaker about her books. And I feel like, oh my gosh, if there was a great defender, the two of them could just really have this awesome relationship. So that is what I am going with. A Town Called Solace.
Okay, I'm going to choose a book that's about 20 years old, actually.
Ooh.
I went through, I was kind of forgot we were doing this question, and then I went, oh my gosh, what do I pick? And so I went through to my Canadian Lit shelves, and I picked River Thieves by Michael Crummey. So
Oh
he's
yeah.
yeah, right? So he's a Newfoundland author, Rebecca. I don't know, I don't think you and I have discussed him.
Mm-mm.
So, yes, so he's from Newfoundland, and River Thieves is actually set in the 19th century, I believe. Let me check on the back. Yeah, the beginning of the 19th century. And it's about um, a white settler colonist coming to Newfoundland to establish contact with the Beothics, who are the Aboriginal inhabitants of Newfoundland. I loved this book when I first read it. I need to reread it soon, actually. And what I why I think it would be good now is I find that we're struggling with history and history as we know it and history as it's being revealed as we learn new stuff. So, and what do we continue to teach? How do we teach history now? I find it really interesting what the discussion that's happening around history, uh, especially as we learn more about those that we hold up as national heroes
Yes.
historically, right? And do we maintain like just even the physical statues? Do we, like just how? So I find this book kind of challenges that part of it. And even as I read it, I remember when I grew up in Newfoundland and learning, and even in elementary school, this stuck in my head that the Beothics were exterminated from Newfoundland. And that's what I learned. And that's all that there was to it. But then we also have a rich history of Métis and Inuit, but we didn't learn that history. So I always thought it was really interesting now that I've become in the last 10 years or 20 years, I'm like, wait a minute, I just learned about the history of the extermination, but there's so much more. So that's why I'm choosing this book. And I think Michael Crummey is very charming, lovely Newfoundland accent. So I would like to see him on there as well. I think he'd be a great author.
Sorry, I was just gonna respond to that by saying he's had 2 on the long list before, but I don't think he's ever made it to the short
Oh,
list.
see?
And River Thieves, it's funny, I have 3 of his books sitting here, so I'm just looking at
Yeah.
them to make sure that I'm telling you the right.
Was it one of the long list?
No, this one I don't
Okay.
think I could be wrong, but I don't think
Yeah.
this one. So yeah, I actually have 4 of his books here, but 2 of them have been long listed. Sweetland and Galore are the 2 that
Oh,
I'm
yes,
aware
yes.
of.
Yep.
And I have never read any of his books, but they're sitting right here.
Oh, well,
I
you
gotta
have
get
to
on that.
fix that. You got to get on it.
Yeah. So I wrote down a couple because I was like, they're gonna steal my answers and it's gonna look like I don't know what I'm talking about. So that's not really why, but these were just ones that I was thinking about. So I picked. What's my reasoning for picking this? I picked The Western Alienation Merit Badge by Nancy Jo Cullen.
Oh, I don't know this one.
That's
don't
why I
either.
picked it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I had a feeling that most people's reaction would be what you just said. Like, what? Who is this? What's going on? Yeah, Nancy Jo Cullen. So funny story about Nancy Jo Cullen is we actually were from the same hometown. I actually grew up with her nephew, but I didn't know all that. And I went to a book conference. Actually, it was the Fold. It was Festival of Literary Diversity. And there was this woman there, and I just felt drawn to her in some way. I was like, okay, somehow she's important. Then I found out her name was Nancy Jo Cullen, and I saw that she had a couple of books out. Never heard of her, never saw the books before. I picked up one of the books, came home, and my friend made some comment about his Aunt Nancy. And I went, like Nancy Cullen. And he said, yeah, that's my aunt. I said, I just saw her at a conference. And so I thought, I better read this book. So The Western Alienation Merit Badge, I read last year. It takes place here in Calgary, actually, before I was a Calgarian. I read this, and it takes place early 80s. And it's about a family who has just lost the matriarch, the mother of the family, and the siblings. I think it's 2 sisters that. Is it 2 sisters? I'm pretty sure. The 2 sisters kind of come back together. The one is kind of the black sheep of the family, and they're trying to figure out how to help the father. And there's a lot about the grief and just coming together as a family. And there's LGBTQ characters. It's just a really interesting read. And then every chapter is one of the badges. Like they're named after one of the badges that you would get. So it's really cool. It's kind of nostalgic that way. So that was one of them. And it was because, one of the things I love about Canada Reads is I often hear about authors that I would never have heard of before.
Yeah.
And Nancy Jo Cullen, I think, has been flying under the radar for a little while. And I don't I haven't read some of her other books, but I think she's an interesting person. Have you heard of Helen Humphreys?
Yes.
Yeah, so
I've
they're
heard
partners.
of her.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's who they're partners. My other one.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh no, sorry, just me going. Oh.
Yeah.
No.
The other one that I was thinking, and I don't know, but like Wabakishi Rice.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking any of his books really. Snow of the Crusted Snow. What is it?
Moon on the Crusted Snow.
Moon on the Crusted. Thank you.
Yeah.
Moon of the Crusted Snow. Is probably his most popular, but he has others too, like Midnight Sweat Lodge. I really liked as well. I'd love to see him on Canada Reads. I think that would be really good.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Those were my thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to say this because I'm not sure, Tara, if I've ever said this to you, but I did say this to Shauna in the past. Whenever I go to Goodreads and I add a title, I go, oh, that sounds good. I add it to my list. Every single time I add it, it will say, Bookworm Adventure Girl has marked this as want to read. And I think to myself, okay, you must have 5 million books on your list because it doesn't matter what I put on there. Your name is on it, and it makes me laugh every single time.
That's funny. That is very funny, Rebecca. I don't have 1 million. I probably have a few thousand.
Oh, okay.
But we do tend to read a lot of similar things.
That's true.
Especially since you do read Canadian literature, right? So
yeah. Well, but sometimes I'm looking, but sometimes I get really weird, like it'll take me down a weird path when I'll find this book and I'll go, oh, that actually sounds kind of interesting. And they're not all Canadian, but I just go, And then I look and I go, son of a gun, there it is again. It makes me laugh every single time. I love it. It really, and actually, quite frankly, I look to go, wait a minute, what? She doesn't have it on her list if I come across one that's not on the list.
You know, it's funny because I have a friend who kind of does the same thing. She'll say, have you heard of this book? And then I'll say if I've heard of it or not. She'll say, because I looked on Goodreads and you didn't have it. Or I saw that you had it on Goodreads and you rated it, whatever. So I'm like, you know, I don't know that I should necessarily be the bar of what you're looking for in a good book. But I'm glad that you're checking. So that's good. That's good.
No,
And so you're-
you read so widely and so much that I always do look for, your opinion on things. I really like to get your take on stuff. So yeah, so that's why you're here again with us, and we hope that you'll continue to join us in the future, of course.
Well, thank you. Well, you know, I love to talk about books, and I like when, you know, it's nice when you're like, oh, I thought that too, but it's also nice when it's like you have a different take, you know, and that we can learn more that way, I think, when we hear other people's opinions. So I think that's important. And yeah, I'll join you anytime. Just let me know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Tara and I said, that because we keep agreeing on everything, and so we said we made a deal that the first time we totally disagree about a book, we're going to do a podcast on it, because that will be a different take, since we almost always agree on what we like. So yeah. Does anybody want to add anything else as we wrap up Canada Reads 2022?
No, except I have to now get back on Goodreads so I can test
Yes.
this Jolene factor.
Jolene factor. Well, let me know how it goes, Sarah.
I will. I'm going to try tonight. I'm going to like something, try and think of something obscure and see what happens.
Well,
because then we could always do something on like, why haven't you read these books, Jolene?
That's true.
That's right. We are totally going to do that.
That's right. That's right. No, I always like a good, book recommendation. So I'm always, I never stop doing that. I never think, oh, I have too many, on the list. No, it's always like, oh, that one looks really good. I'm adding that. And so that's why there ends up being thousands on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just want to say thank you to, obviously, my partner Tara in this journey this year on Canada Reads. We had so much fun, I think. And I want to thank Jolene for joining us. And Jolene, really seriously, you are welcome back anytime. We have so much fun chatting with you before, during, and after. So everybody, have a wonderful rest of your year, and we will see you all back for Canada Reads 2023 next year. Thanks.
Thank you, Jolene.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you.